today I'm going to show you the project for a fourth grade lesson called Op Art. The students will have learned about artwork that has an optical illusion, and there's a couple options that you can work with. The first one is this template that you can just print out. I would print it on Astro Brights. This one is very simple. It's even fairly quick. I mean, there's a lot of coloring to do, but other than that, it's pretty simple. So you could use it as your project if you don't have a lot of time or the teacher doesn't have a lot of time. You could also use it as a project that the students do if they finish the other one. Or you could even use it for a student that maybe is a little bit frustrated. Every class just has students with a wide range of abilities, so sometimes it's nice to have something to give somebody that's struggling, especially when you get to the older grades, like 4th and 5th. I feel like the ability range gets wider as some kids kind of have some more natural artistic abilities and some don't, and it's totally fine. So let me show you how to do this one first. This one's, like I said, fairly simple and fairly quick. So they're just gonna pick one of these, like I said, that's been printed on Astro Brights, and they're gonna use a ruler. And the first thing they're gonna do is they're gonna find the lines that go through the center of the circle, and they're just going to continue that line through the circle, just like this. And so there'll be just a straight kind of T or an X, however they want to say it, through the circles. And then they can do that for all the 3 circles. Just draw that line. And now what they're going to do is they're going to connect all these other lines, but they're going to connect all these other lines with a curve. So the curve is going to go the same direction as the edge of the circle. And they want to make sure to make it look curved. Sometimes they have a tendency to kind of do something like this where it doesn't really look curved at all. And the more curved they make it, the more it will appear to pop up off the page. So they're just gonna do a curve, and then any of the lines that need to be connected, they'll connect. Like this. And then they're also going to do the lines going the other direction. Like this. And like I said, sometimes they end up making that line really straight, and I just did that. And then they just do the same thing with all 3 circles. Okay, so now you can see how these circles now appear to pop off the page. So what they're now gonna do is color every other square with a marker. I like to do black. I like the effect of the black against the Astro Bright, but they don't have to do black. It's kind of my preference. So one thing that does help them is they can start coloring every other square, like a checkerboard. And sometimes, they'll be going this way and then they'll do up here and they kind of get off on their checkerboard. So what I like to have them do is, using a pencil, just make a small dot in the square that they will color in. And this allows them to have done this in pencil, so that if they realize that they got the wrong square, they can still erase it. So the idea is just going every other, like I said, just like a checkerboard, just mark all those squares. I've marked all the squares that are going to be filled in. And as you can see, even I messed up when marking with the pencil, which is why it's so important to do this step with the pencil first, because if they just start coloring, they will mess up the checkerboard effect, and then it just doesn't quite have the same look. And especially when they get to where these circles are, it's a little tricky sometimes to figure out which ones make it the checkerboard. So then after that, they would just fill in all these squares that have a dot in them. And they can use a crayon, they can use a marker. I like just using a Crayola marker or a Sharpie just to fill them in. And then they can just fill in all these squares that they've marked. So when they're done, they'll have filled in all of the squares that they marked, and it will look like this. So they do just get to see the effect of it popping off. And as you can see, even I messed up. So sometimes it's just hard to get that every other square going, but marking it with the pencil definitely helps. They could, after they're done, they could go in here and add some light shading around the circles if they want. It does just give it a little bit more depth, but it's definitely not necessary. But they can. I like to do it with a pencil's fine. Black colored pencil is actually ideal, but whatever they have. So that's just if you want to add one more emblem. But again, this is a great activity even for them just to kind of understand the concept or to do in their free time, maybe after they finish the other one. But it's up to you how you use it. The main project I have for this one is making these images that pop off the page like this. So I have a couple right here. I went and did this with a class. I always like to do these with a class before I share them with you guys, and I did find some ways to make this go better. So this is how I did these ones. I did these ones entirely with marker, and I found with the students, they just got really messy with the marker. They got they got kind of tired of filling it in with the marker, and it just quickly got messy. So I'm gonna show you how to get the best result with the students. I did it with 5th grade class. It would be really similar with the 4th grade. So I did some troubleshooting, and I'm gonna show you how to make this a little bit more successful than I was doing this with a class a couple weeks ago. So you're just gonna start with drawing paper, whatever you have, and then you need some templates like this. And I've included some in the lesson. And you really want to, you're welcome to use different ones, the ones that I offered. You really want to think simple. Hearts, circles. This cat works great because it's really basic. We tried some more detailed outlines, and they work. They just don't work as well. That image doesn't pop off as well. And they get a little bit more frustrated trying to figure out how to make the lines. I did have several students ask if they could do their own outline of a dragon or their name. And I did let them try, but they were not successful. And they kind of took too much time trying to get that outline really nice. So my recommendation would be to stick with these really basic outlines and to have them pick one of these basic outlines and not try to do their own. Like I said, our goal is always a successful project that they are proud of. And so we try to give them just the right amount of parameters without stifling their creativity. And that's where they'll be able to use whatever colors they want, but that's just something to think about. So you're gonna have these templates, preferably with nice thick lines, because they're gonna trace them. So they're gonna put their paper over and trace the pattern. So that's one thing to check. Make sure that the paper that you're using, that they can see that shape through. The circles are fun because they can put multiple circles on the paper instead of just one, kind of like the other one I showed you. They could even do they can mix whatever they can fit on the page, as long as they're not overlapping. So the key would be that they need to be not overlapping. So the first thing that they're gonna do is they're gonna trace the shape with a pencil. And I always remind them we're not sketching, we're just tracing a nice clear line. So I did the heart here, and I'm also, just for fun, gonna add a circle. Okay. So now I've got the shapes that I'm gonna do. Again, they can just do one shape, they can kind of mix them. They just need to be not overlapping. And then the next step that they're going to do is they're gonna use a ruler, and they're gonna draw lines across their paper. And they're just gonna go straight across, and they don't have to be perfect. They don't have to be perfectly, 1 centimeter apart. Or I do try to tell them, think about a 1/2 inch is kind of what I like to tell them. Don't go smaller than a 1/4 inch or bigger than a 1/2 inch, but it's fine in there. They can vary that, the height of the line. So when they get to their shapes, their line will not go through the shape. And when I did it with a class a couple weeks ago, they didn't struggle with this at all. I kind of thought it might be something difficult, and they didn't struggle with this at all. They had no problem understanding that the lines did not go through the shape. This is a good time just to have them go ahead and trace the lines that they just drew with marker. They can use the ruler again, but it's fine for them to just freehand that. So they're gonna use a black marker. So a black marker will help clearly mark these lines and help to see that illusion. So they're not gonna use the marker on the outline. They're just gonna use the marker on those horizontal lines that they just made. And as you can see, freehanding, it's fine. You'll have some students that want to use the ruler with the marker. That's fine. Just make sure that they're not being overly trying to be perfect. Sometimes you have some students that do that, and they just take so long, and then they get frustrated when it's not perfect. So I kind of like to watch for that and kind of remind them that it's art, it's not perfect, and that's fine. The next step is going to be adding those curved lines. One of the problems that I found when I did this a couple weeks ago is their tendency when connecting these lines was to not make them a deep enough curve. So one way that I found to help with that is to find some round objects, just anything in the classroom. And they don't need to use it for every single curve, but I have them pick a line to connect with that curve, and I'm just gonna line it up. And that just gives them a good starting point. So the other curves are gonna follow that same line. They don't have to use the object for every curve. And they may find, like, smaller objects, they need to use a smaller item. So again, they don't have to do this. They could just freehand that, but that is something that I found that they struggled. They struggled to get enough of a curve to get the optical illusion. So by giving themselves kind of that first curve, again, it doesn't matter which line they've connected, now they know to kind of follow this same curve for the rest of their lines, like this. So after they've drawn the lines, the curved lines, then they can do the same thing. They're gonna now continue these black lines that they've done and finish them now with black so that it looks like one line continuing, just with the curve in the middle. So now they'll kind of start to see that effect of the lines starting to give that illusion of the shape popping off the page. They can go back through if they want now and kind of get rid of the pencil lines. They can even get rid of the outline if they want. So the difference I found in this project that made them more successful was now moving away from markers. The black marker is great. If they have to fill this in with marker, for whatever reason, they just get really messy. And I've rarely found a lot of success with them using markers for an entire project. So use the black marker, now have them use crayons. They wouldn't necessarily have to use black marker. I just like the look of the black marker. So now have them fill in the rest with crayons, colored pencils, whatever you want to use. I like crayons because it's quick, it's not messy. Like oil pastels would look amazing on this project. The colors would be awesome. But again, they do tend to get a little bit messy. So now I just have them choose colors. I encourage them to pick a pattern. It doesn't have to be 2 colors, 3 colors, 4 colors. It can be whatever they want. Picking a pattern does give it a cool effect of really being able to see those shapes pop off the page. Real quick, a trick that I do like to teach them when they do this, it's helpful to them. Sometimes they get off on their pattern, and similarly to how I did in the last project, I like to have them go through sometimes and just put a little dot of what color comes next. And this helps them to stay in the right pattern. It also helps sometimes if a student is a little bit slower at doing the project and a friend wants to come help them finish, if they've done this, a friend can come help them do some coloring in. But this is a great way to help them not mess up their pattern, which can frustrate them if they mess up the pattern that they had. They can stop here. If they want to add some shading where the outline of the shape is, they can. If they're going to add the shading, they would just do a real light and fading shading line around the edge of, and they'll still be able to see where they erased that pencil and where those lines started to curve. But like I said, the shading is not necessary, and some of them may like the effect of just the curved lines. So I hope your class is successful. Again, I have done this with a class, and I think I have helped to kind of troubleshoot and find where we had some issues and help them be the most successful.